For those of you who don't know or haven't been to one of my classes, I'm managing editor of Shadow Mountain, the national market imprint for Deseret Book. I've been in publishing, it'll be 20 years this summer, so I've seen a lot of manuscripts across my desk. I've worked on a lot of projects, and I've come to a lot of conventions, which is always a lot of fun. By night, I write young adult love stories and contemporary romance and some short fiction. I've got 4 novels out, and on weekends, I'm obsessed with supernatural. So. It used to be Dr. Who, but now it's Supernatural. And I'm not even going to apologize for it, because I totally love it. So, the class we're going to do today is, I'm calling Now Hiring What Publishers Are Looking For in New Authors. How many of you have published a book with a traditional press? Sweet. How many of you have published a book independently? How many of you have never published anything at all, and you're still hoping to find, awesome, you're all in the right place. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the things that I look for when manuscripts come in, the kind of mentality that I have when it comes to the author-editor relationship, as well as the delineation of jobs, of what you do as an author, what I do as an editor. And for those of you who are in the query class this morning, some of this is actually going to overlap. Who was not in the query class this morning? Sweet, then that'll be new to you. So, here is the question I get asked all the time. In fact, even just in the hallway before the class started, somebody sat down and said, so, what's Shadow Mountain looking for these days? And I get that question all the time. What are you looking for? I am looking for a manuscript that will sell 100,000 copies. That is what I want. Class dismissed. Questions? No. Actually, there is a little bit more to it, but we all laugh, but the truth is, when it comes right down to it, publishing is a business, right? You have to think about it as a business. Writing is an art. Writing is creativity, and it's exciting, and it's passionate, and you put your heart and soul into it. The publishing monster is business. We are in business to make money. I joke sometimes that you offer up your beautiful baby, and I try to sell it on the open market for as much money as I can get. That's my job. Because the publisher has to make money. We all have to stay in business. That's what pays my salary. And so we have to look for books that other people want to buy. And agents want to make money. They don't get paid unless they sell your book to somebody. If an agent ever actually asks for money up front, run away. They are not a legitimate agent. Agents only get paid after they've sold your book and signed a contract. And they usually get 15%. That's pretty standard. Don't panic. They are worth every penny of it for what they do to help you. Editors want to make money. That's me. I want to go to Disneyland every year. And I need to do that. In order to do that, I need to keep my job. And you as authors should want to make money, right? There are times where you write for a charity event, you write to practice, or you write for a friend, and those are perfectly acceptable things, but at the end of the day, you should want to make money at this. That's your job. And readers, they don't care about money, right? They're willing to give you their money in exchange for a really good book. So you authors have to kind of straddle that line, that strange line between art and commerce, to still be passionate, to still tell a good story, to still want to do all of the beautiful, inspirational things that you do as writers, but you also have to have the business hat on and make sure the people you're working with, that everybody up the chain makes money. The readers, they just want a good book, and they will pay good money for a good book. So, you have to think about this, that businesses will hire employees, right? Any job that you have, any day job that you even might have, you went through a hiring process. These are some of the things that we kind of look for, that I look for in new authors. Kind of people I want in our business, that I want on our team. I want an employee with imagination and vision and flexibility and passion. Those might not be the things that you thought we were going to talk about. But those are fundamental character things that I'm looking for authors to embody. I'll take 3 of those things. I might even take 2 of those things. If you get all 4 of those things, you're in a great position to be the kind of writer that a publisher or an agent will want to partner with, will want to team up with, to get your books in the hands of the readers who want to buy them. So we're going to talk about all 4 of these things. So the most important thing, this is what sets authors apart from everybody else, is your unique imagination. The story that you are telling that nobody else can tell because nobody else has your imagination and nobody else has your approach to that story. That's the critical difference. That's what makes you unique, and that's what makes your story valuable, because you're the only one that can do it. So, be proud of your creativity and shill it for all it's worth. So, as the author and your imagination and the story that you're telling, you have some jobs to do. This is from a manuscript that came in. It says, "The murderer is Jonas," said Jonas. And when I pointed that out to the author, she said, "'Tis," with the apostrophe, "'tis not my responsibility to keep track of my characters' names. After all, I must leave something for my editors to do." Yeah, we don't publish that author anymore. But yes, there are some things that your editor will do for you. But there are some things that you as the author are supposed to do first. Because the author's job is to write the book. It is not my job as the editor to write your book. That's not what I get paid to do. And I wouldn't want to write your book. I want to write my own books. I have my own ideas. I got my own thing going on. Only you can write that book. So you have to love your first draft. You have to love your second draft. You've got to be in it for the long haul. You've got to do revisions. You've got to improve your craft. You've got to do all of those kinds of things because that's the job. That's what you signed up for when you signed up to be an author. So you're going to need to make sure you have developed characters. You're going to need to make sure you've structured your plot appropriately and that your pacing is good. Then you're going to need to track all your world building details. Even if you're setting your story in 2017 in Provo, in February, at a writer's convention, you have to still do writing world building details to anchor your reader in the geography and the time and the place and make it believable and make it real. And especially if you're doing fantasy, you've got lots of world building details to keep track of. You're going to have to make revisions. Surprise. You're going to have to at least learn the basics of grammar. You don't need a master's degree in grammar and spelling and punctuation. That's part of my job, but you at least have to know the basics. You at least have to know how to put a story together, how to put a sentence together. So those are the tools that you're using. If you mess up, if you make a mistake, if you are really bad at splitting at comma splices, that's fine. I can fix that. But you've got to at least meet me partway there. And you've got to meet your deadlines. This is really important, and it sounds silly. It sounds like, well, why wouldn't we? But art is fickle. And as an author on the other side of the table who was staring down a deadline that I missed twice, it's terrifying to say, my publisher is waiting for the book, and it's just not done. It's not that I just need to run the spell check one more time. It's just I have nothing in chapter 22, like nothing that except it's chapter 22, and then there's like a whole blank space, and it's not even the end of the book. It's just not done. And there's nothing you can do about it because you haven't written it, and your deadline's tomorrow, and what do you do? And that is terrifying. And so as the author, you have to be upfront and honest about if you are falling behind on your deadline, because your deadline impacts more than just you and more than just your book. I'm working on 10 to 12 different projects at any given time, and they're all different stages of production. And if one of those plates that's spinning starts to wobble and fall, the repercussions can be really dangerous. And if you miss your manuscript deadline too much, we might have to pull your book from the schedule and release it at a later date, which then makes marketing mad, and the sales team mad, and the designers mad. And having said that, I totally understand when authors have to miss their deadline. And I've given extensions on deadlines all the time, but I have to know up front. So be honest with your editor and with your publisher about what you actually can do. And I'm only passionate about it because there's a manuscript that's late, and I'm really mad at it. I'm not going to name names, but if it doesn't show up on Tuesday, it's thrown down. So, questions about the author's job. Hopefully this is not news to you, that you know that this is what you signed up for, that this is what you are getting involved in because you love to tell stories. So these are some of the things that are my job, the editor's job, that you can expect or request from your relationship with the editor. This is what, because we're going to be a team, right? You and me and publisher and marketing, we're all going to get together to do the very best product so that the reader is happy. That's our goal, to make the reader happy. So there's some things that I'm going to do in relationship to the book. I'm going to review your structure and your story, and I'm going to challenge your ideas. You as the author will have already built a beautiful story and built a beautiful structure and done all of the pacing and all of that good stuff. And I'm going to double check your work, and I'm going to challenge you and say, this is good. I think you can do better. I don't understand this part. I think you need to clarify it. And that's part of my job, is to challenge you. You may not want to accept all of my recommendations or edits, and that's okay. I might not have the right answer. I might not have the right solution to the problem, but if I can point out the problem and you can find a good solution, then your book will be better for it. So you're also, the author-editor relationship is also one of conversation. So if you feel passionate about something, don't just roll over and say, well, my editor said it had to be this way, so I guess that's the way it has to be, even though I feel really passionate and she's totally wrong. I need you to tell me when I'm being totally wrong so we can come up with a third alternative. Or maybe I just really am wrong and you're right. That has happened. I'm also going to streamline your prose. Without breaking a sweat, can cut 10% of anybody's manuscript in here. Easy. Without even damaging the story. Because you don't see it, and that's okay, because the author's job is not necessarily to see the repetition and the words, and my job is to see where can we tighten it up, where can we trim a little bit here, where can we trim a little bit there, where can we pick a more powerful verb than the one that you've got to tighten it up to keep your prose moving right along. So don't panic when your edits come back and really all I've done is cut some of the fluff. Ultimately, my main job is to preserve your voice. An editor's job is not, like I said, is not to rewrite your book. An editor's job is to make your voice shine. It's one of the hardest things an editor can do. It takes a lot of practice. So if you're working with a freelance editor or somebody who's brand new, you might have to do a couple rounds to say, no, you're editing me out of it. This is not how I write. This is not the character sound. You're missing something. Let's give a little back and forth to get it right. Because at the end of the day, we want the readers to say, my goodness, that author is so amazing. I love the story that they tell and how they tell it. And not, sounds like the editor wandered in and mucked everything up. And I'm going to fix your grammar, spelling, and punctuation. That's the copy edits. Do you guys know the difference between content editing and copy editing, the two different layers? I'm seeing a lot of yeses, so I'm going to move on. So that's the other thing I reassure people when they're submitting a manuscript, and I think most editors will do this, at least, and especially for me, when I'm reading a manuscript and I encounter a problem, my first question I ask myself is it fixable? Because low-level typographical errors, even some grammar, spelling, those are super easy to fix. That's my job to fix them. As long as they're not on every single sentence or every single paragraph or every single page, if it's just the general debris that surfaces in the course of writing a story, that's easy. I don't reject manuscripts because of that, because I can fix it. Blindfolded sometimes. If the problems are more substantial, if it's plot problems, if it's character problems, if it's pacing problems, are they fixable? Yes. Is it my job to fix them? Maybe. Maybe it's the kind of problem that ratchets up to the level where I say, that should actually go back to the author. It's a big enough problem that I don't have the time, nobody's going to pay me enough to actually fix this problem. Those are the ones that usually get rejection letters when it comes to rejections based on content and not based on timing or other projects that are already in the schedule, which is a whole other reason why sometimes books get rejected. So your job as the author is to make sure your manuscript is as clean as you can make it, but don't stress that it has to be perfect, because there is no perfect manuscript that has come in. We've probably never even published a perfect manuscript. There's always something that's going to be in there. But as long as you feel that the mistakes that are invisible, that you can't see anymore, are probably low-level, fixable kinds of things, you're going to be fine. And you can send that in. And my job also is to keep elements consistent. So I'm not only structurally make sure your chapter numbers are sequential and your chapter titles are right, but I'm also looking at characters that have blue eyes at the beginning still have blue eyes at the end. Things like that, I keep track of those as well. And often, again, it's sort of to double check things that you've probably already been working on in your story. I also have responsibilities to the author because we're gonna be best friends. We're gonna be on the same team. So I frequently offer support. I call this talking people off the ledge. Please tell me that my book is good. Your book is good. It's gonna be fine. You did a great job. Are you sure? Because I got your first review and it was only 4 stars. Yes, it's fine. It's totally fine. It's fine. Or they're like, I don't understand. How do I order books? Or what do I do about book signing? Or just understanding how the process works, how the business works. That's part of my job, is to help you understand how that works. Often I'm called upon to help brainstorm ideas, not just for titles, but even for plot things. Quite a number of years ago, Josie Kilpack, who was writing the Sadie Hoffmiller Culinary Mysteries, called me up. We worked on, I think we were up to, it was probably books 7 or 8, Stress Leches Cupcakes. And she called me and she's like, would it be okay if I wrote a chapter? The whole series has been third person from Sadie's point of view, but would it be okay if I wrote a chapter from somebody else's point of view? And I said no, because that would look like a mistake, because you haven't done it in like 9 books. You can't. She's like, but I need to break the action away from where Sadie is because of X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, no, you can't do that. And so we brainstormed for like an hour how to get the plot and how to present the story to maneuver around this obstacle that she had so that she could keep the story with Sadie's point of view, so that the reader wasn't all of a sudden jolted out of this experience into somebody else's head. And we figured it out, and it worked. But that's part of my job, is to help brainstorm that. I'm going to answer all of your questions about content and copy editing and the business and marketing and who do you talk to and all of that kind of stuff. And because ultimately I need to be your resource, I need to be your teammate. I'm the Sherpa that's going to get you to the top of Mount Everest, right? All of the work, none of the glory, that's okay. I'll take your picture on the summit. And that's my job, because you need to be the one at the top of the pinnacle. You need to be the one with your book. And so that's how I feel about my job. And you want an editor that's going to be a support and a resource and a teammate that can be your friend as well as your mentor, as well as your editor. So that partly, when I say this part of your story is very bad, it doesn't crush you. You say, oh, yeah, that is bad. I should fix that. And then your book gets done. So here's a quick checklist of things that hopefully your book has before you start submitting to editors and agents. And your beta readers hopefully will help you with this. Some of this you may have to just answer on your own, but things that I'm looking for are manuscripts that have a really marketable hook. I was at a conference a couple weeks ago, and Jody Lynn Nye said something brilliant, and I'm going to quote her forever and always give her credit, and she said, you either have to be first, best, or different. And I'm like, you are a genius. I wouldn't even take 2 of those things. You've got to be at least one of those things, and that's because that's what we're gonna hang our marketing plan on. That you're the first, you're the best, or there's something wildly unique and different about your book. That's easy, it's easy to sell. I want manuscripts that have a really strong voice, strong, authentic voices, regardless of the genre that you're writing in or for the age group that you're writing in, always rise to the top. Always, always, always. I want relatable characters, because they are the people that we are following through. That's who we, as the reader, invest all of our emotion into to follow through to the end. I want authentic dialogue and a compelling plot. It's kind of the stuff that you as readers look for as well, right? Because at the end of the day, editors are just readers in disguise. I just want a book that I can fall in love with, that I can tell my friends about, that I can be excited about. And I want to share with people. And you all have felt the same way about the books that you love. Okay. So, look at your book and see if you have it. I'm also sort of looking for the twist on the familiar. There are only really, when it comes right down to it, so many plots in the world. There are only so many formulas. And every story is just kind of your own unique take on those. This list on the side are some of the common tropes, the common formulas about plot. We read romance for the formula. and for the journey of getting to the kiss at the end. And when we don't get the kiss at the end, it's boo, thank you, from the front row. It is, we feel betrayed because the promise of a romance is there will be a kiss at the end. That's fine, have a kiss at the end. But give me a twist on the journey to the kiss at the end. That's what's going to set your book apart. We're always looking for fresh takes on familiar themes. And we want to answer the question, how is your story unique and original? That's part of it, like I mentioned, what makes marketing's job so much easier when you can say, it's like this but with a twist. Or you love that, so you'll love this. This is what makes this story unique and original and a fresh look at a story you're familiar with. If you can distill that down, if you can identify that for me and teach me how to talk about your book, that goes, you go way far down the reviewing and acceptance path, because when you send a manuscript into me and I love it, I now have to sell it to everybody else on my team. So if you can help teach me what's unique about your book, that makes my job in selling it to everybody else easier. And ultimately, it's your job to just keep writing. This is one of my very favorite children's books. It says, Mother Pig stayed in her room all afternoon writing a children's book. She paid no attention to the pig won't. And you can see all of her little keys are flying off of her typewriter.
Pay no attention to what?
Pig won't. It's a story about Pig will and Pig won't. And Pig will always does his chores, and Pig won't doesn't. And Mother Pig doesn't care because she's writing a children's book. One of the reasons why we need you to keep writing is because we want authors who have more than one story in them. I'm always a little wary when a manuscript comes in or when an author shows up and says, I have worked on this story for 25 years. Okay, so in all the 25 years, you never had another idea that you wanted to write about. I'm going to have to wait another 25 years for book 2. Those are kind of scary things because the industry is no longer as patient as it used to be. Readers are voracious. Readers want it now. Readers want book 2 as soon as they finish book 1. And publishing as a process, as an industry, can be very slow. That's just the truth. And so you have to always be producing content. You always want to have more than one project somewhere in the pipeline, so you always have fresh content out. And that might mean that you might need to write more than one story a year, or more than one book a year. Now, before you all panic, and you're like, I can't do that, it's a whole year. You might not have to, but if you're going to stretch yourself and set a goal, I would set a goal to write at least 1 book a year, and then write 1.5 books a year, and then write 2 books a year. And continue to increase your output will naturally translate into more opportunities to sell your work and get paid for it. Because publishers are looking to build a brand with you. How many of you have favorite authors? And you buy it no matter what. Here's the perfect example. This is why I'm hanging on to this book. Tad Williams. I love Tad Williams. I buy everything Tad Williams writes. I don't even read the back of it anymore. And this is his brand newest one, and I got an art copy, and I'm like totally fangirling over it. Because I'm a reader and I love his work. I don't even care. I don't even care what it's about. I love him. I love his books. I bought them. I would buy the books. And we all feel that way. And that's because he has a brand as a writer that I respond to. And we want each of you to be your own unique author brand. So people go to the bookstore and don't say, I'm looking for title. They say, I'm looking for author. And then they buy everything that you've ever done and they clean out the shelf. Right? That's what we want. We want you to be known for something, to be the first of somebody. Okay, so that's creativity. You've got to have high output. You've got to do your job, be creative, tell a story that you can tell, be the kind of author that people will fall in love with and follow. We also need your vision, because your perspective, you're coming into the industry in a slightly different perspective than we are. You're not necessarily to say that you're outsiders, but you have a foot in a different kind of world, in the creative world, than editors always do. But here's the great thing. The information is so transparent and is so available that you can look at the same kind of resources that the industry looks at. It's not some secret information that just exists behind closed doors. You can read Publishers Weekly every week. You can look at Publishers Lunch and Writer's Digest. You can see what the trends are. You can see what deals are being made. You can figure out who the hot agents are. You can see what the publishers are looking for. We look at all of those same things all the time because we're trying to predict the trends as well. We're trying to see what's up. We're trying to figure out which agents are worth working with, which authors are kind of on the rise. And it's a little bit of homework, but that information is available to you as well. And authors that can come with that kind of background, who've seen that same kind of vision, that are looking at the same kinds of things that we're looking at, makes you valuable as well. Tons and tons and tons of agents, editors, and publishers are on social media. You can stalk them, and it's totally fine. The police won't even arrest you. It's amazing. And you don't even, and it's a great way to get to know them as people and as readers, so that you know who to send your book to. I follow a ton of them on Twitter, even though I'm a very bad tweeter. I guess, is that the right conjugation? But I look at what they talk about all the time. And they do manuscript wish list calls, they do pitch wars, that's where they find authors, they'll follow you back and see who you are.
Manuscript wish list, this did it like a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, manuscript
Awesome.
wish list a couple times ago, it's usually hashtag MSWL, manuscript wish list. And so if you keep your eyes on that, that's also a great way to find calls for submissions for anthologies or for short stories or for unique elements that you may look at and say, oh my gosh, I actually have a book that totally fills all of these requirements. Yes?
Would you say that I just lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. We'll come back to you.
Again, wasn't it a website that you said?
Manuscript wish list, there is a website, but also on Twitter you can search the hashtag for it, and every so often it'll pop up when people or agents will say, you know what I really want is Pride and Prejudice and Tarzan. I want like Pride and Prejudice but in the jungle. And they'll tag it as manuscript wish list. And then somebody will say, I have that story. I'm going to send you that story. And I say, awesome. And we become best friends. I'm not actually looking for Pride and Prejudice and Tarzan, just so you know. That was just an example. Although now, okay, so I want you to keep the vision. What do you see from your perspective as being a hot trend? Are novellas trending? Are ebooks going higher? Are short stories picking up? Is epic fantasy on the rise? Is dystopian fading? I mean, you can see those same kinds of things. And if you can come to us and say, I predict this is where the industry is going, and here's my book that I can be first with, we'll say, awesome, that's a total great marketing hook. Spotting the trends in popular genres. Having talked a lot about trends, let me give you this great caveat. Please don't write to the trends. Be aware of them, but by the time, sometimes it's tricky, because by the time you identify that a trend is coming up, you're kind of too late to start writing a book right then. I believe that you should always write the book that you are passionate about. And if it means putting it on the shelf for 2 years until the trend cycles back around, then that's what you do. Because if you say, oh, you know what? Urban fantasy is on the rise. I'm going to write an urban fantasy, even though I've never written an urban fantasy before. That's where the money is. That's what I'm going to write. Then you're going to have to take time to do the research, take time to write the manuscript, take time to get it rewritten, take time to sell it. By then, you might be 1-2 years down the road, and urban fantasy may have dipped down out of that trend, and people will say, yeah, you missed the boat. And the danger of writing to the trend that you are not passionate about is it will show in your work. It won't be authentic. We'll be able to tell that you don't really love it, you don't really know how it works, and your story will suffer for it. So be aware of them, but always stay true to your own vision as a writer. Please stay curious. I'm also a cat person. It's not my cat, but it's adorable. I am a big believer that you should always still read for pleasure as well as for work. There's an article that a college did. It's called "This Is Your Brain" on Jane Austen, and they scanned people's brains when they were reading, like for school, for studying, and then they scanned those brains when they were reading for pleasure, and it activates different parts of your brain. And there's something eminently relaxing about reading a book that you don't have to think about. I love to read on my own because I don't have to, somebody else has already thought through plot problems, and somebody else has already figured out the grammar. I don't have to look for any of that like I do at work. I can just read the story. So please always just read for pleasure. Make sure you have other interests and hobbies. That sounds more, like obvious, but the more interests and the more unusual things that you find in the world, that's fodder for your idea file. That's how you add something interesting into your work. Years ago, I found an article about this parasite that was infecting spiders and in spiders' brains and forcing them to eat this certain kind of fungus that would make antlers grow out of their head, like bone antlers. So of course, I sent a picture of this tarantula with antlers to my brother who hates spiders, because I'm the best sister in the world. And I'm like, look at this weird thing that is happening in the world. And he's like, I hate you. And I'm like, I know you. Well, it turns out my friend Greg Luke also saw that exact same thing, and he has now written a book about that same fungus, only it's in people's brains instead of spiders' brains. And it's probably going to be a terrifying story, and I will read it. But it's something that came out of real life that was weird, that was an idea that grew into something bigger and better. So being interested and being curious is going to get you more interesting stories. So learn something new today. I hope you all, maybe you've learned a lot this weekend, but learn something new. And then ask yourself, as you're looking for your vision, as you're talking about who you are as an author, you have to know why it is that you write. That's part of what makes you unique as a writer. What message are you trying to convey to your audience? What's your platform? You'll hear that a lot from agents and editors, is what's the platform? What are you going to talk about? Why should we care about you as a writer? What's your expertise? Brandon Mole and Jeff Savage are two of our authors, middle grade authors, that we have toured extensively through schools and to talk to kids. And they don't show up and say, hi, I'm an author, you should buy my book. They show up and Brandon says, hi, I'm an author. I believe that imagination can take you places. And here's how I use my imagination to tell stories. And here's how you can use your imagination to do amazing things. And Jeff does the same thing. He doesn't say, I'm an author, buy my book. He says, there's magic in everybody, and you should find your magic and find out what you're talented about. And it's inspirational, and it makes the kids want to learn more about the story and to learn more about themselves. That's a much more effective marketing tool than just standing up and saying, you should buy my book. So find what your platform is. What is it you're really actually trying to say with your writing? And the third point, how am I on time? I'm doing all right. Flexibility. Like I mentioned, publishing is a weird business. And we're going to ask you to do a lot of interesting things. You're going to have to revise your book. Even after you've revised it 900 times through your critique group and your beta readers, your editor's going to ask you to revise a bunch. That's just part of the course. Often we're going to shift schedules. As we look at a whole season, and we start juggling, when do we want books to come out, which month, and when does marketing need it, and when does BEA happen, and where do these things happen? We'll juggle and shift and change, and you might find that your book gets bumped 6 months, but into another season, but that means 6 months from now you might get a better marketing budget. Yes?
What's BEA?
BEA is Book Expo of America. It's held once a year, usually in New York. It's where all the publishers get together and say, look at our cool new lineups. And librarians come, and industry people come, and authors come, and it's like a super big deal. There's book signings, and free swag, and New York pizza, and all that good stuff. And it's one of the big shows that publishers go to, and they show off their best books. So if they say, we want to take your book to BEA, so we're going to move it 2 months, you say, thank you very much. I will wait 2 more months. Or we might say, one of our other books just fell out of the schedule, we need to move yours up 2 months. Are you okay with that? That means you're going to have to do more work faster. So you've got to be flexible on that. You're going to be a whole new team, because it's not just you and the author, it's not just the author and the editor. It's the author and the editor and the publisher and the marketing department, the sales department, the design department, and the typographers, and the booksellers, and the buyers, and the librarians. I mean, everybody gets involved, and working with the team becomes really important. And you may have to learn to love a new title or a new cover, because those get changed all the time. Most publishers, I think, authors always get a chance to weigh in on titles and covers, and sometimes they are asked early in the design phase, what do you imagine might be on the cover, but that's a pretty rare request. And there have been times where we say, we're really sorry you hate the cover. Marketing says this is the one that's going to sell, this is the one we're going with. And you kind of might have to learn how to love that. But it's easier when that book actually does sell a whole bunch and you're like, oh, you were right.
So you don't need to send in a cover?
You do not need to send in a cover. Please, yeah. It's one more thing that I have to deal with before I actually get to your story. And most of the time covers, we're going to do our own. So you're going to have to hurry up and wait. That's how publishing works. It can take a long time from submission to acceptance to production to release. The books at Shadow Mountain that we are saying yes to right now are being scheduled for spring 2018 and even fall of 2018. That's a year. And that's not counting. Those are the ones that we're saying yes to. That means we've already done, I don't know, it could be 6 months of review time before we even get to this point where we say yes. And then it might be another 6 months before I actually start working editorially on the book. And so that long lead time is mostly designed to help with marketing. But there are always, at some point, I'm gonna come to the author and say, drop everything, look at the edit, you have 2 weeks, I need it back. And you're gonna have to drop everything and look at your edits and get it back to me. So you're gonna have to be prepared to work, and then you're gonna have to be prepared to wait for a little while, because just the way the ebb and flow of the work goes. That's why deadlines become really important, because as I mentioned, if you miss your deadline, other books are depending on your schedules. And if obedient books that follow through their schedules without any fuss are the best kind of books. And the best authors that I love to work with are the ones that I can say, Josie always makes her deadlines. I can bank on it. She says it'll be here February 15th, it'll be here February 15th. And it is, and it's great, and it makes my job easy. You want to be one of those kinds of authors. Ultimately, though, I'm looking for authors who have passion. Who loves your book? You do, right? That's why you wrote it. So you need to express and share that kind of love and why you are passionate about telling the story to every single person you meet. When I wrote Hourglass Drawer, nobody at work knew I was writing it. I kept it a secret for like a year, and then we finally decided we were going to publish it. And I had to practice telling people that I wrote a book, because I deliberately not told people for a very long time. And it was also kind of surreal. So I made myself a promise that when anybody ever asked me how I was doing, I would say, great, I wrote a book. So that's what I did. I was at the grocery store, and the nice checkout lady said, how's your day been? I said, great, I wrote a book. And it was awkward and weird. But then she said, oh, what's your book about? And I'm like, I don't know. A girl and a guy. I just, can I get my cereal and go home? But you have to practice, you have to love your book, you have to tell people about it. That's part of your job. Like I mentioned before, if you can teach me how to talk about your book, then that makes it really easy. Yes?
Do you have any tips for falling in love with a book that you've been working on for ages?
Falling in love with a book that you've been working on for ages.
Again.
Falling in love again.
Give it a really good edit again.
I'd walk away from it for a while. I'd give it to a trusted individual, and then I would say, okay, tell me the story in your own words of what happens in this book, and listen to what gets them excited about it, and the kinds of things that they skip, and hopefully that can reignite the parts where you're like, oh yeah, that was a really good part. Oh yeah, that part where and then the twist at the end, that was really good. That might help reignite it. If it doesn't, then it's time to just submit it and stop looking at it. And just bite the bullet and just put it out in the world. Because somebody else, you might be blind to it, and somebody else will love it. So, be patient zero and cough your passion on everybody. That totally did not work. It totally sounded better in my head. Moving on. This is why we need editors. Because you think, no. Okay. Well, I'm going to say, now you're all going to remember it, right? You're all going to remember it. Okay. And in this day and age, I really honestly believe as an author, you have to be accessible to your readers. It used to be that in order to communicate with the author, you had to write a letter to the publisher and hope that it got to the author and hope that they wrote you back. And they would have to like hand write you a letter or type it on a typewriter. I know this because I have such letters from authors that I wrote to when I was young. But these days, readers expect to be able to find you on social media somewhere. On Facebook, on Twitter, on Snapchat, on probably a gazillion things that I don't even know about. You don't have to be on every single platform. But you should probably be on one, at least. And try to be on the one where your readers are. If you're writing for teens are probably more likely to be on Instagram than on Facebook. That's just kind of the deal. So, if you're gonna pick one and you're writing for teens, maybe you want to start with Instagram, because that's where your audience is, that's where they're going to want to hear you talk. And then it can grow from there. There's lots of programs even that will cross-post on lots of platforms, so you don't have to spend your whole life just doing social media. But be social in the social media. Let us see who you are as a person. Let us see who you are as a writer. Invite readers into the process of your writing, into the experience of writing your book. They love your books just as much as you do. They have opinions and feelings about your characters, and you listen to them and you talk to them about them. If they are your friends, they will want to read your books. These are some of the things that you might want to do. But you don't have to do all of them, but usually a publisher will ask you to at least do some of these things. Maybe you'll do school visits. That works really well for elementary, junior high kinds of things. Not so much high school or college. But if you're writing middle grade, school visits are a great way to talk about your book. Book signings are pretty par for the course. Sometimes they're great, sometimes they're not. I was at a book signing one time, and there was a table twice as big as this, and they had one copy of my book in the entire store. And they put it right in the middle of the table on a little stand. It was great. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to sell this one book in like 20 minutes and then go home, right? A bad storm rolled in. Nobody came in that store for 2 hours. Like, nobody. It was me and the 2 employees, and it was super awkward. And I'm like, I can't even sell one book. It was kind of a low point. That's a bad example. I'm making you sad. But sometimes book signings are really great. I've been to plenty of book signings where I've met somebody who said, hey, I'm an important person with an important event. I would love to have you come speak at my important thing. And I'm like, I would love to do that important thing, because now I can meet more people who are important, not more important people, and talk to a whole bunch of new people about my book. So opportunities and invitations can come. Writing conferences are super fun, library visits, blog tours, interviews. There's lots of different ways for you to be flexible and talk about your book. And you'll be surprised how frequently that snowball effect will come in if you start saying yes.
I've heard that blog tours are starting to be less effective.
Yeah, blog tours, it depends again on the genre. Sometimes they're really, really effective, sometimes they're not. So you have to weigh that sort of risk analysis and say, is it worth my time to do this in the hopes that I get this result? Or is my time actually better spent writing another book? And that's the question you're always going to have to ask whenever it comes to marketing and appearances, and where are you spending your time? Those 2 hours that I spent with the one book on the big giant table, I kind of didn't mind so much, because when I realized nobody was coming in, I wrote a chapter on my next book. I'm like, nobody cares, I'm going to just write. And if by some miracle somebody comes in, then they can buy it. But I use my time wisely. So, find your tribe. Tribe is any group of people who are connected. We are a tribe, right? Everybody who writes, we all love LTUE, we're all here because we want to connect. We want to connect with each other as writers. We want to connect with each other as readers. We want to talk to each other about how to make our books better and the books that we love. And your fans and your friends and your family and the people who love your books are part of your tribe. And your publisher is part of your tribe. And you want to connect with those people. Okay. This is the part where we're going to go really fast because I realized it's 1:45 and now I've got like 5 minutes to finish this up. But this is the very quick, fast thing that we're going to talk about: query letters. Actually, I'm not going to go through this. I know it's super fast, but I'm going to put these notes up on the Facebook page, or I can email them to you, because I want to get to this part. This is more important, and then we can do questions. Suffice it to say, query letters are really important, and you should write a really good one.
She gives a great class on it.
I know, I already taught a class on it this morning, so this is what I'm looking for when it comes right down to it. For you who are new authors, who have never published, who are still looking for agents and editors, granted, this is the lens through which, this is the gospel according to Lisa Mangum right now, but these are things I believe are pretty universal, that I want, that people, publishers are looking for writers who can deliver amazing and original stories regularly and on time. You're a good employee, you come to work every day. I want a writer who has vision for the future and can see how they fit into the overall industry. You know where your place is, you know how to carve out a space, you know how to fill that space and be the star of that space. I want a writer who can roll with the inevitable punches that are in the publishing industry. It's weird, it can chew you up and spit you out, but it's a great industry to work in. It's beautiful, we make magic every day. I love that. But, and I want a writer who can speak passionately about their work and inspire people to buy their books. That's what I'm looking for when it comes right down to it. When people say, yeah, I want a book that'll sell 100,000 copies, but I also want an author who will be a partner, who will be reliable, who will be creative and imaginative and inspiring, who I want to be a fan of, just like everybody who will walk into Barnes & Noble to be a fan of. Also, ultimately, if you fit any of those qualifications, we're looking for you. My job only exists with fresh blood that comes in through the slush pile. Not fresh blood, fresh manuscripts. I'm not looking for fresh blood. Please don't send me blood in the mail. It's not good. But I'm looking for fresh stories. I'm looking for fresh ideas. I want manuscripts, stories that I can love and fall in love with and champion. That's what I want. And I can't, publishing doesn't exist without you. Readers don't exist without you. So you have to tell those stories that you're telling. You have to be brave and bold, and you've got to have the vision and the flexibility to kind of say, this is a weird, unlikely profession I've chosen for myself, but I'm good at it, and people are going to pay me for it, because we will pay you for your stories. So be brave. Promise me we'll all submit something somewhere this year.
Yes.
It's your homework. And we have 2 minutes for questions. Yes.
What's the typical breakdown? You mentioned 15% for agents. How does that all break down for the author, for the publisher, and everybody involved?
So this question sort of break down on percentages. Agents get 15%. Usually the royalty percentages vary widely based on if it's hardback or paperback, if it's your first book, if it's your 10th book. And so ballparking it, this is where your agent is really important because they will negotiate higher numbers. It could be anywhere from 6 to 10% of the wholesale price of your book. Yes.
Do you ever edit and republish books that have been self-published?
Do we ever pick up and publish self-published books? Yes, it has been known to happen. It's very risky. Shadow Mountain, we've done it a couple times to not great success. We've gotten burned a couple times. Usually when that comes up, if an author has a history of self-published books, I say, awesome, look at all these fans that you've gathered up. What's the next thing you're working on? Let me look at the next thing that's fresh and new, and then I'll just tell all the fans that are following you to buy the new one, rather than pick up something that already is available.
How long does it take you to read a manuscript for the first time? And also, at what point during that time that you're reading it, do you decide that you want to keep it or that you don't?
Okay, she's asking about reading time. There's actually 2 different kinds of reading that I do. If I'm just doing slush reading, I'll make decisions sometimes in the first 2 pages, or the first page, or the query letter. I've been known to, and you clearly don't know what to publish, reject. So that is really fast. I can blaze through the slush if I set aside an hour, I can get through 10 or 15 manuscripts just that fast. If the manuscript comes in and I know we're going to do it, if it's Josie's next romance, if it's Sarah's next romance, if it's something that I'm like, oh yeah, we're going to do content editing, then I usually read during lunch, and so it can take a good couple of weeks because I'm just reading in 45-minute chunks to get through that first kind of pass to say this is good, this is where I need revisions, cut 50 pages. Stuff like that. If the in-between of 15 in an hour and 2 weeks for a book that we know we're going to do, often, if I'm not really, if it starts strong and I start fading by like chapter 3 or 4, I'm probably usually out.
Do you prefer email or post?
All of our submissions at Shadow Mountain go through our website. It's all electronic. We use submittable.com. So if you go to shadowmountain.com and submit your manuscript, that's the portal that everything goes through. And then I'm the first person that looks at it. And then we do it all electronically.
Is there a best and worst time during the year to be submitting to you?
Best and worst time during the year to be submitting. Submissions come in all the time. New York houses, for whatever reason, often take Christmas. Christmas is hard. They're all gone. And even sometimes in the summer, they have like summer hours. I'm like, really? You don't come in on Fridays in the summer? Lucky. So for Shadow Mountain, no. The door is always open. Send it anytime. But be aware if you have a seasonal kind of book, if you're writing for Mother's Day or for Christmas or for an anniversary, you're going to want to get it in really early because we do all of our Christmas books in July because they've got to go to press and be on the shelf in time for Christmas. We have time for one more question. Front row.
How many of your authors are like first time, or like how many books, like
For
what percentage of your books are by
first-time authors.
Yeah.
So the question is, what's the breakdown for first-time authors? That varies from year to year, but I'm always very proud to say that at Shadow Mountain, every year we have somebody on the list who's a first-time debut author with us. They may have other books that they've self-published with another publisher, but at least with us, there's always somebody who is brand new, first-time, ready to go. And like I said, we need first-time, fresh ideas. Okay, thank you very much. I hope this was helpful.